Here's all the remnants of the cutting and trimming of trees and bushes we did out the front of our yard, which is going to be fillings of some things we're putting into our backyard today. We're going to be putting in garden beds today. So this whole area, which is on one side of our house in our backyard, this is a spot we've picked that's going to have our garden beds because it's a space away from the main backyard where you might want to use for just like kids or entertaining or whatever. But this is nice, relatively flat. We're going to have to level some of the garden bed spots that we put in, but it'll get the most sun. This is the furthest that the shadow will come over from the fence. It's good to keep that in mind because plants need a certain amount of light to grow healthy. And this is as far as it comes across, and we're putting in raised garden beds, so they'll actually be a little bit higher, so they'll get more sun because they're not right down on the ground there. So we're going to be putting in 4 beds. So on this side, there's going to be 2 smaller beds, and on the other side along here there'll be 2 larger beds, as in like height wise and also width wise. On this side we're going to have 2 garden beds. They're going to be, I think, 500 across and 4.8 long. So there'll be one here and then there'll be one here, and they'll both end up coming up so that they sort of finish with our with the end of our patio here, so that then this whole area will be the garden. And on this side we'll have 2 other beds, and they're going to be taller. They're going to be 1200 tall and 4.8 meters long. So I was a little bit off with my measurements of what it actually is. So the beds on the right are going to be 4.3 meters long and 500 centimeters wide. And the beds on the left are going to be the same length. So they'll be 4.3 meters long as well, but they'll be 1200 wide. These are our awesome tanks that we got put in. These, we needed to get these in first before we could put the garden beds in, because we wouldn't be able to fit them in through our side gate. Once we put the garden beds in, we wouldn't be able to get them around, so these have to go in first. So here are the garden beds that we're going to be putting in. They're Birdies brand, which we quite like the quality of, and they're made here in Australia. This is it here. So Birdies garden beds. So there's a couple of different sizes, like I said. I can't remember which one is in which of the boxes. I think these would be the smaller sized ones and these the larger sized ones. So pretty excited to get them out and set them up. The bee's having a little snack. So we're going to start making one of the larger beds, the ones that's 4.3 and 1.2. And we just read the instructions. And so they actually come with plastic on the outside, so you have to make sure you take off the plastic first before you put them all together. So it'll just be easier that way. So you have to take the plastic off all of them, and then you've got slightly smaller panels which will go on the end, and then you'll have 2 corners, and then along the edges you'll have these other slightly longer pieces, and they come with all of the hardware that you need to attach them. These are all the little nuts and bolts that you use to attach the panels together, and they also give you all of these reinforcement bars that go inside the beds, so that when the soil is in there they don't bulge out on the edge. It kind of keeps it nice and tight. So we're gonna start and put one of these big beds up together.
So satisfying.
So we've just laid out the pieces that we need to start off one of the big beds. So there's the 4 larger sides on each side there, and there's also 2 corners at each end and a slightly smaller edge here. And so the plan is to screw up the large edges all together first, and then go from there.
A couple of different things. We've chucked our bolts and nuts into some containers just to make it a bit easier than going around in the bags. I've had a bit of a look at this. On the outside we need the little dome shaped bolt, and then on the inside of the beds we need these little nuts. See if I can get it. These little guys. So we're going to do that, but if we have a bit of a read, so our beds are 4.3 meters long, and it says for beds over 3 meters we've got to put some braces in the 3rd, 6th and 9th hole from the bottom. It might be a bit hard to see on the video there, but so what we're going to do is we're going to start putting the bolts in each of these holes except for the ones that those braces have to go in, and then afterwards we'll go through and put the braces in. So I've done one, and we've come up with a pretty good system already. So the best way that we've found to do it is that if you get 2 people and you separate all the bolts out into one container and all the nuts out into the other one, except I just showed you the wrong ones then, swipe that and reverse it. If you lift this up and you have one person on the outside putting the bolts through and one person on the inside screwing the nuts on, and that works pretty well. You'll also see that if I push this down on the floor like this, we put the top and the bottom one in just to kind of like lock in all the rest of them so it's easy to put them through, but you'll notice that there's like still a bit of movement in the holes there. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the top one in, the bottom one in, and we'll screw those ones down tight with the drill, and then we'll just finger tight all the other ones, and we'll continue doing that for all of them, and then once they're all in, we'll go through and hit them all with the drill to tighten them all up, leaving the little gaps for the little cross members. So that's our plan. Alright, so we've got 2 side pieces, that one there and that one there, and now we're going to add the end pieces. So we're just going to put these little guys on this one, making sure that the edges of these are on the outside as per the instructions, and then I guess we just try and stand these 2 up and attach them to the ends.
So we've got the first big bed up. We just finishing off putting the rest of the bolts in all the holes. For these ends and the corners, we only put a couple in just so that we could have it standing up, and now we're putting the rest of the bolts in. Also remember to take the plastic off first, otherwise you'll try and take it off and it won't all come out well. So we'll remember that for the next one. This one's all set up, and so then we'll move it into position and put in the reinforcing bars into the spaces that we've left. It said to leave the 3rd, 6th and 9th holes for the reinforcing bars. So we don't have screws in those holes along the sides, so that we're going to put them in now. So now that all the bolts are in, we're starting putting the reinforcing bars. They come like this, 2 separate holes, and then you screw them in together, and then you thread them through the outside into the middle and attach them with the nut and bolt on the end.
Pro tip to get these exactly center. If you put your thumb at a mark where the thread is halfway, and then you push this on, thread it up to your thumb, and then thread this other one in, both rods will meet in pretty much the exact center.
So this first bed is all finished. We just want to try and level it though, which means we just need to dig out a little bit underneath where the base will be. It's just on a slight slope, not a whole lot, but then it'll just be better for like when it rains, you don't want all the water sort of going to one side and favoring one side of the beds, and we'll probably have to do it for the rest of the 3 beds as well. So we'll just do it with all 4 so that they're all the same level. So we've got our plan ready. We've got some brightly coloured marking so that we can mark it out on the ground before we lay out the beds, because once we put the beds there, we need to mark around it so that we can, it's on a slight slant, so we need to sort of dig in a little bit to level it. So we're going to be able to mark it there so that we can work out where it needs to be leveled. You see it says created by MGC. It's for my garden classroom. So we're just going to mark the inside of the bed so that we don't get pretty pink paint on the outside of the nice bed, and then we can move it and know where we need to dig just a little bit of a trench, just a thin trench, so that we can level the bed out. So we have a beautiful pink outline now, and we just have to dig a trench around sort of the top side here so that we can level the bed. Just needs to go down about maybe that much. So the first trench is dug for this bed, all around the side there. And now we can move it into place.
Yeah, hopefully it's the right height.
Yeah. And we'll just backfill to get it to the right level. So someone's very proud of their work in leveling the beds. The bubble is in the very middle.
That's pretty good.
Good job. Good job, babe. So we decided to use the turf underneath the garden beds to go and re-turf our front yard because it's a big pile of dirt at the moment. So it's 4:30 now, so it's taken us nearly the whole day, but they're all in their spots. This one is leveled, this one is pretty much leveled, but they're all built, and these ones do still need a little bit of leveling, but everything is in.
I'm bugging.
Yeah, that's hard work, but mostly Luke. But and we do have turf out the front too, so that was a bit of a bonus. So I'll just measure the inside of this bed, so that then we'll be able to level it. We'll probably still do that this afternoon while we've got light, and then we'll start on the filling process with all of the stuff we've got there, because we want to do the hugelkultur method, where you just use sort of what you have lying around or what you can source that will naturally break down and create a good habitat for worms and things like that. So we've got a bunch of wood and leaves there. Some we need to cut up a bit smaller, and we'll also get some mulch to layer in there. On the very bottom is going to be cardboard though. We'll also probably put some worm castings in there just to encourage them to come up and to feast on this, and then we'll get some topsoil for it. And so then pretty much once a season, then you can come through and just put in like a layer of about, I don't know, 20-30 centimeters of compost, depending on how your soil's going, so you can just keep refreshing it and keeping your soil healthy. So it's ridiculously windy today, but we're trying to fill the beds now that we've leveled them. Actually, we still need to level one of the smaller beds, but I wanted to just let you know before I head outside, because it's really windy and I'm not sure how much you're going to be able to hear me or understand me when I go out there. So I've started chopping up all of these branches into small pieces, so they're more like little sticks that we can put into the beds. I've also laid some cardboard down in the bottom of the beds, or most of them. I'm sort of still in the process of that. We decided that we're just going to put all that extra lawn that we cut up just into the beds anyway, because we're going to do the front lawn as a separate project. So we'll just use it as extra fill, which is great because then we don't have to get as much dirt. So that's what we're doing at the moment. I'll go out and show you what we've done so far. We've also picked up some mulch from a free council mulching spot where they mulch up all the tree trimmings from around the city, so that anyone from the community can come and pick them up and use them for free mulch, which is pretty awesome. So I'll go out and show you what we've got so far. So this is where I've been cutting up all of the bigger branches into smaller branches, and I've laid cardboard in the bottom, and because it's so windy I've been laying some of the excess turf on top to make sure it doesn't blow out of the beds. I've done the same in this bed as well. I need to actually move the cardboard out of this bed because we haven't actually leveled this one properly yet, so we need to do that still. But I'll be filling up this bed with cardboard and at least laying some of this stuff some of this extra turf on just to hold the cardboard down. In the smaller beds, I'm not going to put in really any of this tree clippings or anything because it is so much smaller. I'm pretty much just going to fill it with dirt and then a layer of compost on top. But with these ones, the big beds, we're doing the cardboard and any excess tree clippings that we've got, and also the mulch that we got from the council, and might also put in like some sugarcane mulch as well. So there's all this stuff here, which as the beds settle, it will just slowly break down and be good food for the worms. So that's our job for this Sunday. A lot of work, but fun. It's good to be outside on a nice day. It's not freezing, it's just really windy. So we're gonna keep going with that. So we've got all the wood chopped up and into the beds now. Some of my old plants are in here with their excess soil. So they're all done, so we can put the mulch on top of everything now.
Ready? 3, 2, 1.
So every time we put some mulch in, I just come back and try and level it out so it gets into all the little crevices there. We've sort of just been coming in on one side and then the other side to even it out along the whole bed. So unfortunately, for some reason, some of my audio cut out. So I just wanted to let you guys know what the beds look like now. We've filled them all with the mulch that we picked up from the council, and in the smaller beds we've now laid in the cardboard as a bottom layer to get ready to start filling it just with soil. We also received our delivery of garden soil, and we've got it out the front here because we couldn't fit the truck out the back. So we've just got our big piles here, and we're going to have to wheelbarrow it around to the side, but it looks pretty good. So like I said, we have been getting soil from the big pile out the front, wheeling it around, and then dumping it into the beds on top of that layer of mulch. It's going to take a while. So here's our first little bit of soil in the beds. You can see it's going to take us a while to fill it all up, but it's definitely a lot better than having to fill the whole beds with soil. It's much easier having used those other resources. That's going to be able to break down and be food for the worms, and now we just have this nice mix of moisture and garden soil, mix of manure and garden soil on top. So I realised I didn't actually show you guys the end result of our bed, so this is a little bit of a sneak preview of what the garden looks like now. But after we did all the filling on the beds, we covered it with a layer of mulch, and it ended up planting some seeds and seedlings in it. And this is what the garden looks like. So it is full of life and looks absolutely amazing. Everything is growing so well. So like I said, all I did was, after we put the soil on, it's the soil straight under there, I put on sugarcane mulch over the top of all of the beds, and I've planted in them, and now it's looking excellent. Like, look at this. It's a golden zucchini. I don't want to show you too much because I'm going to start doing garden tours again soon, but I just need to show you guys what the end result looked like. We even put in a trellis here. With star pickets and some crisscrossed wire there, and it all looks excellent.